Welcome to Ninerology. I'm your host, Alan, and let's talk all things strength and conditioning with the 49ers. Dustin Perry has been the head of strength and conditioning for 6 years. He's been with the team for 8 years, been the head of strength and conditioning for 6 years. And the fact of the matter is multiple players are going down with hamstring injuries, and that is not a good sign at all. Especially since you are a couple of days in with pads. You're not even in the dog days yet of the preseason. You haven't had your first preseason game yet. That's 10 days away. But yet you have Juwan Jennings, who goes down with a calf injury. Ricky Pearsall, who just returned from a hamstring issue. Renardo Green went down with a hamstring injury. Jacob Cowing out with a hamstring injury. And then you also have Michael Williams with the ankle. But again, we won't attribute that to the same type of injury. But those hamstrings and calves, those things tend to lean to kind of the same category. Is this a hydration issue? Is this a not properly stretching issue? Is this a, hey, I didn't have a good offseason program to prep me to be training camp and football ready when the time came? The fact is, the 49ers should have had plenty of time to rest in the offseason, plenty of time to amp up. In fact, when you think about it, the 49ers had plenty of time to recover because they didn't even make the playoffs. And so they should be well rested and ready to go. And in fact, started and honestly been full steam ahead as soon as training camp started. The fact of the matter is you have a lot of your day one starters that are going down with these injuries, and those should not happen. And so Dustin Perry, something's got to change there. You've been here for 6 years. You had an entire offseason program where you didn't have to worry about the playoffs and players basically having tired bodies. They had an extra couple of months to kind of rest and also get in gear for training camp and the preseason. The fact is, we're 10 days away from the first preseason game, and we don't know how healthy the 49ers are going to be. It's one thing to have a season-ending injury. Those things always happen. But when you constantly have muscle issues, you constantly have strains, something is happening with the preparation. I think Dustin Perry, you got to take a long look in the mirror and figure out what is going on with the training regimen that I have these players on, and where can I make those adjustments. Now, granted, you're not going to do a big overhaul in the middle of training camp, but you might make some, tweaks here and there because something has to change. Hopefully that change happens. Again, we're 10 days away from the first preseason game, and 49ers don't seem ready based off of these types of injuries. Now, hopefully that changes. Hopefully, a few tweaks here and there, maybe some of the rest days and extra stretching that can fix that. But time will tell. Time will tell because the 49ers lack depth. That is one thing they lack. And if you start losing day one starters because of poor conditioning, because of poor offseason program, because of those types of things, then we got to take a long, hard look in the mirror at strength and conditioning. The next thing we want to talk about is the O-line, the 49ers offensive line. Trent Williams, reported by Matt Mayoko, was beat several times by Nick Bosa, which, Nick Bosa, both players are first-team All-Pros. But Trent Williams was visibly frustrated. Now, was this because of the entire O-line play? Was this because, hey, Nick Bosa seems to be getting into midseason form earlier than Trent is? Who knows? We know that Trent's going to be Trent. He's going to continue to dominate that left side of the field. But again, the question is going to continue to be, how is the offensive line going to perform? Because the 49ers are going to go as deep as the trenches allow them. If their O-line, let's face it, the O-line is what cost the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. The defensive line is what prevented the 49ers from doing well last year because other opposing teams were able to stuff and run the ball all day on the 49ers. And so when you think of the O-line really is two dominant players where you have Trent Williams and Dominic Pooney. Outside of that, you don't have a whole lot of depth. Now, according to Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, Jake Brendel is at the center that is every coach's dream. That if you put on the tape, that's what you're going to see. Not according to PFF. He wasn't even ranked the top 32 centers last year. And so now maybe they mean that's the top center that can run their offense, but there's still a lot to be desired when you look at Jake Brendel as a center. We see how much he's dominated in the center when he faces average to bigger size defensive tackles, unable to move them from point A to point B to open up those gaps. Now, hopefully he put on a few pounds of muscle and can change that. But then you look at the right side of the ball with Colton McKivitz. We know the story. We saw how many times he was thrown around by Micah Parsons with one arm and just thrown across the board. But this year he says he's going to be a Pro Bowler. Now, as a 49er fan, I absolutely hope that that is the case. You want every player to absolutely dominate at their position. But history shows Colton McKivitz, did he do better last year? Absolutely. Is he going to be a Pro Bowler this year? That's yet to be, known. Um, but we know that the right side has constantly been a weakness. Why do you think whenever from Raheem Mostert to Christian McCaffrey, you have those runs going to the left side, and that's because that's where Trent's at. That's where big play Trent's going to be. You run to the left side of the ball, you're probably going to be pretty successful. You go to the right side, hey, the vote's out because we don't know how McKivitz is going to hold up. In fact, when you have pass protection, where do you put George Kittle when you're in a passing situation? You put him on the right side to help Colton McKivitz because McKivitz has issues. Now, hopefully this year it'll change with Colton McKivitz saying he wants to be a Pro Bowler. Maybe he has the motivation he needs. But again, you look at the past several years, where do they end up moving protection and sliding that to? It's always on the right side, never on the left side with Trent because Trent can hold down his side. Colton McKivitz needs help with run blocking. He needs help with pass blocking. Now, is he average run blocker, average to above average? Yes. Pass blocker, not so much. You put Micah Parsons on him, he spun him around for days. Now, again, here's the hoping that he makes that stride, that it just clicked this year, and he's able to kind of stack days and become that Pro Bowler that he's claiming to be. Time will tell. But one thing's for sure is that the 49ers season is going to be decided by what happens in the trenches. If the 49ers defensive line can dominate the trenches, if the 49ers offensive line can keep Brock Purdy upright, can open up holes for Christian McCaffrey, then the 49ers can go as far as they need to put themselves in a position to hold that Lombardi trophy. But mark my words, if the trenches break down this year, you could potentially see the last season that Kyle Shanahan is the head coach, because there's not really many excuses for another 6-11 season. The 49ers have paid their quarterback. There's not as much offseason drama outside of Jawan Jennings, who wanted his contract extension. But the 49ers need to show up. You have a lot of players that are being paid the top salary at their position, and the 49ers need to put up or shut up. And so I think Kyle Shanahan knows that. I think there's a lot of focus on that. I think that's why you bring back a Robert Saleh, because you know what? While, Steve Wilks had the 49ers as the top 3 defense, he didn't align with what they were trying to do. You look at Nick Sorensen, talk about a joke right there. What a waste of a year. But now you have the guy that can get you back to the promised land on the defensive side. The 49ers offense has to show up. The defense has to show up. Most of all, the special teams needs to show up. 49ers special teams has always been an Achilles heel. You have the kicking competition going on right now. And so you need those 3 phases to be in lockstep and in sync, and you need the trenches to dominate. And if those things happen, you're going to see a very successful year, but that can't happen until we figure out what's happening with strength and conditioning. So Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, you got to figure this out. Luckily enough, we haven't had too many season-ending injuries right now. And so there's still time to make some tweaks, but we got to get that figured out. You cannot go into the season having more day one starters go down. In fact, the 49ers are already out 8 to 9 because of trades, because of losing guys in free agency. And so you have to go with the guys you have, but you can't afford to lose any more day one starters because that's going to affect what happens in season. So the fact is, you got to be ready. 10 days, first preseason game. We'll see what the team looks like. Now, we know that there's going to be bumps and bruises. We know that the day one starters are not going to play probably an entire quarter. Who knows? Typically, the second game is where you're going to see the most playing time because there's only 3 preseason games during the year. So probably the game that's going to happen against the Raiders will be when you see most of the playing time. It just so happens to be that that's when you have your joint practices with the Las Vegas Raiders. So we'll see. Again, time will tell. A lot can happen between now and the first regular season game. But hopefully they can stack these days. Hopefully they can work on this injury bug that's going through the locker room. And hopefully the offensive line can deliver for Brock Purdy and Christian McCaffrey. Hope that's all we have for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.